Welcome back, Wire Monkeys, to another episode of Let's Talk Cabling. This show, we're going to be talking about the generational shift and ways you can become more efficient, specifically with labeling your project. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, estimators, project managers, even customers. We're connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is being created? If you're listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms like Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? Those two simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm, which helps us get the message out to educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? I do a live stream on YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, a bunch of social media platforms where you get to ask your favorite RCDD questions on installation, design, certification, estimation, project management, even career path questions. But I can hear you now, Chuck. I'm driving my truck at 6 p.m. I don't want to get into an accident and crash it. I can't. It's okay. I got you. They're recorded, and you can find them on our website at letstalkcabling.com. And finally, while this show is free and will always remain free, if you would like to support this show, would you click on this QR code right here where you can buy me a cup of coffee? You could even schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course. You can go to the webpage and visit our Amazon link page and buy stuff where you won't pay extra, but we will make a small stipend off of it. And also, you can sign up on the Patreon page. I'm always looking for corporate sponsorship as well. So if you are a company who realizes that this is an agnostic platform and your message is to educate, encourage, and enrich as well, and you want to be part of this successful journey, reach out to me on social media and on the social media platforms, and let's talk about it. You've heard me say many times, there's a generational shift in our industry. The gray tsunami wave. People like me are retiring, and we're not doing a good job at setting up people for success in the future. Because of that, the manufacturers have found tough to make equipment that can both work for both the old boomers like me who do the old two-finger type and the young generational people who literally grew up with smartphones in their hands. How do we address that challenges? And then also, how do we become more efficient so we make more money off of projects or have cheaper projects so we can win more projects? So I'm bringing on Brady to talk about this, and make sure you listen to the end of the show to find out a way that you could win a free Brady label machine. Welcome to the show, Dusty Stump. How you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. Appreciate you having me today.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So before we get into the content of the show, why don't you tell the audience who are you and why we should listen to you?
Yeah, fair question. So I am the Senior Global Product Manager here with Brady Corporation. I oversee our portable label printer business, but Brady as a whole, we are a international manufacturer of identification solutions, and one of our primary customer base are cabling professionals, and we've been serving that industry for years. Myself, I've been in the product management business for about 6 years, all with Brady Corporation. Prior to that, I worked in so much less exciting world of life insurance.
It's not as exciting as low voltage? What?
Not even close. I grew up in a family that was full of tradespeople. My father was a maintenance mechanic for years. Uncles, cousins that are electricians. This is the type of industry I like to work in.
I hear you. I hear you. And you and I had a real interesting conversation about the generational shift. And one of the things I've noticed is, you know, there's this thing called the gray tsunami, right? And what it means is the older workforce is retiring faster than the newer young forces coming into play. And I think that's a little bit of a good thing. Um, but there's still a lot of people out there you label the generation, boomers, Gen X, whatever,
Hmm.
that they struggle with technology, right? What are you seeing, and as working for label manufacturer, what are you seeing about that kind of a shift?
Yeah, so that's a shift we've been monitoring for years now. We've been monitoring the average age of an electrical contractor, for example. It's hovering in the upper 50s, so 58, 59 years old. And so you have a sizable group of electricians and cabling professionals that are very tenured, 25, 30, 35 years in the business, and they love the products they use. They've been using them for a while. They don't want them to change. And then you have now an influx of uh, new employees into the trades that have a vastly different technology expectation. And it's that technology expectation that we're really monitoring when we look at that generational shift. How they work and the tools that they want to work with is different.
Yeah, there's when you look at my generation, there was no cell phones. Not until at least till I was in my 20s or 30s. There's
Hmm.
people being born now that don't know a world without cell phones or Bluetooth or social media. Um,
Hmm.
and in order to, because again, that I mentioned that workforce is aging out, and you got to make a product that's going to work for both the older generation and the newer generation, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
how do you tackle that kind of a challenge? Because, like, let's be honest, there's a lot of boomers out there that still have the flashing noon thing on their VCRs.
I love the VCR example. My father had a flip phone until about a year ago. I joked with him and said, "You should have held on to it because flip phones are coming back now. You've weathered the storm there." I think what's important is just to be able to, as a manufacturer of a product that our cabling professionals are using, we need to make sure that we for both of those audiences, whether they want to interact with a device through your traditional keypad because they grew up with manual tools. Think of right car windows that you manually have to crank up, a manual stick shift, manual rotary phones, right? That we need to continue to serve that group with products and great products. And then those that grew up with the cell phones that have no idea how to drive a clutch because they didn't even know that they existed. We need to be able to serve both of those. So it's important to have a product offering that serves both.
Gotcha. I've noticed, over the last probably 10, 15 years that number one, there's way more competition than there was before. Number two, the labor force it's pretty tough, right? And then and then the icing on top of all this triple effect is customers wanting the job done for cheaper, lower price, and that
Hmm.
drives a huge need for individuals, tradesmen, companies to be more efficient, right? Um, what are you guys doing to help that?
Yeah, yeah. So that really hits on the second major mega trend we see out in the marketplace. The first being that generational shift. The second is this greater emphasis on efficiency. So, for example, I spoke with a lot of CEOs, leaders at cabling contracting companies, whether they be datacom, telecom, audiovisual, electrical. And you hear this over and over from them of we need to be more efficient in order to bring our cost per job down so we can be more competitive when we bid on projects. And once we win the bid, to be more profitable on that project. And so, one of the key complaints that these leaders talk about is, hey, our cabling professionals are highly paid, highly skilled, and very, very good at what they do. And we want them focused on those things that they are highly educated on, not some of the remedial tasks that are time consuming, but not as great of a value add. And oftentimes, identification of cabling and cabling equipment is one of those that is necessary. It has to be done, but it can be time intensive. So we want to focus on making that process more efficient.
Well, so I don't think you did. You mention in your intro that you worked for Brady? I don't remember if you said that.
Yeah, so I've been with Brady Corporation for 6 years now. We are an international manufacturer of identification solutions. So think any industrial strength label that you put on cables or cabling equipment, those materials, the printers to print them, the software to design the labels and print them, all in the wheelhouse of what Brady does.
Gotcha. So as a leader of a company, right? As a like a CEO or operations manager of a cable company, right?
Hmm.
They need their team has to use technology, right? I mean, look at testers. I mean, testers 40 years ago, they were just simple continuity testers. You turned them on. If you got a red light, nope, something was bad. Got a green light, good to go, rock on.
Hmm. Hmm.
Labeling has gotten a little bit a little more challenging or a little more involved than it was from 40 years ago. So tell me about how you, because you got the old the old labeling machines where you would type like that. And then you mentioned the desktop printers and stuff like that. Let's talk a little bit about how you can tailor the tools for those two generations that we were just talking about, the older generation and the younger generation.
Yeah, I love it. Let's bring this all together, right?
Right.
Addressing tools based on the generation of worker or the technology expectations of that worker, while also helping them become more efficient. So what we did about 2 years ago, we brought to market a brand new label printer, our M211. For those that are watching, I can show it to them. All right, the M211 was unique in the marketplace because it allows customers to or users to design, preview, and print labels all from their mobile phone. There is no touchscreen or keypad, right? Everything's phone driven. So how they're used to interacting with their phones, now we bring that to the labeling world. A lot of benefits to software driven design. You have a lot more features than you would typically have on a keyboard label printer, but it's mostly they're using their native keyboard that they're used to. Now, on the same side, we have a printer that uses the exact same label cartridges as this M211 that comes with the keypad. So now we have a product, the same high performance labels, but a different printer depending on the technology expectation of that customer.
So
And
does
here's
somebody
what,
have to download an app to interact with the M211?
yes, yes. So the M211, you can get a free app. It's our Express Labels app. It works on both iOS and Android. So whatever your flavor of phone,
Does it
you
work
can
on
get
flip
that for
phones?
free.
Does it work
It
on
it
flip
will,
phones?
as long as that flip phone has Bluetooth, you are good to go. Yes.
So
Yes.
there's no. Let me ask you this: is there any? Because
Yeah.
the phones are. I swear it seems like there's a new one coming out every 6 months, and I am one of those people.
Hmm.
I'm not a luddite, but I
Hmm.
refuse to go out and buy the latest and greatest phone just because the new one came out. Um, so obviously they're putting in new chipsets and software and stuff. Is there some point where a phone won't work with an M211?
Yeah, as long as you're running an Android 6 operating system or newer, you're good to go. iOS, we support back to iOS version 10. These are years ago.
Right.
So if your phone is still operating and it's not broken, you're likely running the needed versions of that operating system. So it's not a problem.
That actually just got me to thinking. There's always somebody or a company that's got an old phone laying around that's maybe two generations old, well within the parameters that you just said, that's just sitting
Yep.
inside of somebody's desk. They just don't use it
Hmm.
anymore because they don't support it anymore or whatever the reason. That'd actually be a good companion for for that labeling machine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, about 5, 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago now, it used to be looked down upon, frowned upon for anyone to have a phone out on a manufacturing floor or an industrial work site. But that's no longer the case. Now, our cabling professionals might be tracking some of the time on projects or communicating on their phone. email, text, uh, Facebook Messenger, who knows?
Right.
um, and so that's common practice. And then you have software companies that are targeting cabling professionals with productivity solutions. So they're all over the place on job sites and manufacturing floors now. I do want to hit a couple more things on this printer, if you don't mind,
Sure.
because we talked about those technology expectations, and not only is the M211 mobile app driven, but it has some additional technology that's desired. So a lot of people that have been using products for 20, 30 years, they love AA batteries and being able to swap those out. Uh, Younger generation or a more technology advanced user, they don't want to have to mess with it. So this comes with an internal lithium-ion battery. And then Bluetooth, the latest in Bluetooth technology. It's a fast connection with your phone, 3 to 5 seconds, and you're good to go. And then it comes with an auto cutter. So you're able to send a label print job. Maybe you have to print 30 wraparound labels for some Ethernet cables. You just hit print once, you walk away, you do your job, and it just cuts them for you. And then what I'm really excited about is we're just launching an upgraded version or a larger version of the M211. It's called our M511. And so this is double the size of the label, so 1.5 inch wide labels, double the print speed, higher print quality, and then you can connect up to 5 different devices to this M511. So you can share it amongst a team of contractors. So some exciting products that we're trying to, again, address that technology expectation difference. And we have a slew of efficiency improvements. I'd love to talk to you about
Yeah,
those.
let's talk about that in a second. But I want to take a
Yeah.
step back and talk about that battery for a second, right? Because you said it was
Hmm.
lithium ion.
That is correct.
Couple questions
Mhm.
for you. One, what does the charging cord look like? Is it a specific proprietary charging cord for it, or like a USB C to a power block? How am I going to charge that thing?
A USB-C cable, and it has a USB-A adapter at the end, so you can charge it in your laptop. You can charge it in a USB port in your work vehicle, or you can swap that USB cable off, put on an AC adapter, and it plugs into the wall, just like your mobile phone. That
Excellent.
is exactly what that power
And the
supply
reason I
is.
ask is because I am notorious. I've got all kinds of electronic equipment floating around in my shop in here, and I'm
Yeah.
notorious for losing those proprietary little charging cord things.
Hmm.
That's why I love when they go to the like a USB C, USB A, whatever that probably goes to. My second follow up question to that lithium ion battery is: do you foresee, because a lot of the people that I deal with, technicians and stuff, they travel. They travel all day
Hmm.
either by van or by plane because they're going to the job sites out of the state or whatever. Is there any potential problem with checking a bag on with that label machine in it that's got a lithium ion battery in it?
Yeah, so what's really nice about both the M211 and then the newer M511 is they're not very big. So because they have an internal lithium ion, you have to check them in you have to carry them on your plane. So you just bring them on your carry-on luggage, and they're so small that they don't take up a ton of space. Personally, I've traveled to dozens of trade shows, visited customers all across the United States. I bring my M211 with me everywhere I go. The M511 thrown in the backpack as well. It's really not a big deal. You just have to carry it on the plane.
So for those who are listening to this podcast episode, because there's some people who listen to it, they don't watch the video.
Hmm.
Describe how big that M211 is, because like the video when you held it up, so those people could see it. But describe how
Yeah.
big the M211 is.
Yeah, so the M211, this is our 3/4 inch wide label printer. Is about the size of a large tape measure. It weighs 1.2 pounds. It's very light. It comes with you can buy the kit that comes with a belt clip, so you can literally wear it on your hip. It also comes with a magnet adapter, so you can attach it to metal surfaces. The M511 is about twice the size. It's about 2.6 pounds, and I'd say it's about the size of a large power drill. It comes with a magnet adapter as well, and a utility hook. So you could put it on your hip. It's probably a little big, but the utility hook's nice. You can put it on a metal rack or a work cart.
Gotcha. So we were talking about efficiency a little bit
Yeah.
ago, and one of the problems that I used to hate with some of the older generation labelers is, the office would create a spreadsheet. They print off, the label things or whatever, and then
Hmm.
you go out to the job site. They give you one copy, and you know what always happens, right? Inevitably, one or two of them get messed up, and of course, I'm being sarcastic. It's usually more than one or two. Well, now you gotta drive all the way back to the office to go get another labeling sheet, right? So, do you have something like that that can help drive that efficiency for the cable tech, make their job a little bit easier?
Yeah, I love the example, and we hear this all the time. So imagine a scenario rather than that contractor having to drive to the back to the shop to pick up a bunch of labels that were pre-created, or having to create a bunch of them on the fly at the work site. Imagine a world where at the shop you maybe have someone in more of an office clerical role, uh, less technically skilled, maybe a lower pay, is designing all of the labels using our free desktop software. And then they just email them out to the technician out at the field job site. And because I'm using a mobile driven label printer, now I can just open up the label file, hit print, and it prints 50, 100 labels, whatever the quantity needed, without me having to create any of them. That is some efficiency savings. Uh, the other example could be, well, maybe they don't need to print all those labels for the job. Well, the office person can create the spreadsheet, and maybe the spreadsheet has a full week's worth of jobs on it and all the cable identifiers needed. Well, I can, from my phone, as soon as that spreadsheet's shared with me, whether they emailed it to me or whether they put it on, a Google Drive, I can now import that data to my labels as I need them, and I can print just those label files again without having to drive back to the office. Now,
I
if you
think
lose that half a dozen labels, or you need to do some rework or create some more on the fly, now you can just quickly reprint those files, or right from your mobile phone, design a new one quickly.
I see a couple advantages there, and you kind of touched on one. You have an office person um, doing creating the labels instead of a tech out in the field. And let's be honest, I mean, you don't need to be a Bixby certified technician to type letters on a keyboard into a
Hmm.
spreadsheet. And they're obviously not going to be making the same hourly rate as a Bixby technician. And that's gonna take away one administrative task that a tech or an installer in the field has to do, so they can focus more on maybe fixing the issues they found during the testing phase or pulling more cable or stuff like that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk about specifically about Brady products, right? Because you mentioned Brady, and I run an agnostic show. I talk about everybody's products, right? So
Hmm.
what kind of products do you have that are going to address both the generational shift and the efficiency that we were just talking about?
Yeah, so cabling professionals, they use a variety of our products. From a portable label printer perspective, if someone wants to use a mobile driven solution, it's really that M211. That's our entry into our labeling printers, about $180 list price. Then you have our M511, brand new to the market, printing up to 1.5 inch labels. That retails at $400 or $399, and then all the way up to a 2-inch wide label with our M611, which retails at $749. And depending on which of those printers you go after, you're still getting the power of the mobile app. So 30 different barcode symbologies. You have 85 different font options. You have 1,400 different symbols you can select from. So a lot of that power that you're going to get with the mobile app. For each of those software driven printers, we have your traditional keypad driven printer. So the M211's counterpart is the M210. The M511 counterpart is our BMP51. And the counterpart to the M611 is the M610. So they use the same labels, and you just choose how you want to design and print, keypad or software. Simple as that.
A couple questions, follow-up questions here. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, because what you described to me sounds pretty complicated, especially for the older generation, right? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think is from the time that you hand this brand new labeling machine to a tech out in the field who's never touched that particular brand or model before? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think is the amount of time it's going to take before they become proficient and use it? Because you mentioned a lot of different fonts and a lot of different symbols and stuff. How easy is it to navigate around and get up to speed to be using it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone that's excited about a mobile-driven printer is going to be very quickly able to catch up with what is the flow of the printer. So literally, you take the printer out of the box, you power on the printer, you launch your mobile app, and we auto detect that printer for you. In about 3 to 4 seconds, it'll pop up and say, hey, your printer's available. Do I want to connect? Yep, I hit connect. 3 to 4 seconds, it's going to pair and connect, and you're there. And now you just go into your label design guide. We have a blank editor for just general purpose labeling, or we have design wizards, if you will. If you want to create a wire wrap or a cable wrap or a heat shrink sleeve or a flag label. And it's very, very simple visual design, so you can see exactly what the label is going to look like before you even hit print.
No, oh,
Um,
that's nice. I like that.
now,
Let me ask you this,
yeah.
because a person could be using a labeler in the low voltage industry. Anything from, like you mentioned, labeling cables with cable labels, or sometimes some techs like to use the flag labels. I'm never been a big fan of the flag labels. Patch
Hmm.
panels, face plates, racks, and stuff like that. One of the hardest things to do as a technician that used to frustrate the daylights out of me was to sit there and burn up a cartridge of tape trying to get my numbers to line up underneath each one of those ports, right?
Yes.
Do, do you is there a do you have templates built within the machine so that way I can say, oh, I'm doing an XYZ patch panel, 24 port patch panel, and then that way it'll automatically space them for me? Or is it still to that process where I got to kind of figure it out?
I would say it's in between there. So we have a label wizard, if you will, for patch panels, terminal blocks. What are a couple of other breaker boxes, where you always need to align a label directly over whether it was the breaker, whether it was a
Right.
patch panel port, or whether it was a terminal block chiclet. Um, we have a label wizard that you'll say, all right, what's the number of ports needed? And then what's the spacing between the center of one port to the center of the next port? And we know what the typical standard defaults are, and we'll default right to those. We are looking at some neat technology improvements in the future, such as being able to optically, right, using your phone's camera, take a picture of a patch panel
Oh,
port
cool.
and then have it automatically size it. We're not there quite yet, but it's one of those things we're excited about exploring. Uh, we're close to it with our label design wizard. What's nice is you can see that label again on your phone before you hit print, which is going to help you eliminate a lot of label waste.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's I couldn't tell you how many cartridges of tape I burnt through trying to figure out the spacing. And like
Hmm.
what always seemed to me to happen to me is, when you look at the first 3 or 4 ports, it looked okay, but then when it got further down to that, so it started kind of like drifting because you're just off like one space, and then you have to go back and then delete out one space out of each one of those. Oh, it was so frustrating, so
Yes,
frustrating.
yes.
Now, now, so you guys are make label stuff. Are you guys involved in any of the ANSI committees for like the standards, like the 606 standard, or anything like that?
We follow them very, very closely. So yeah, ANSI. We know that there's a lot of recommended guidelines.
Right.
They're not requirements. So we have a lot of capabilities within our mobile software and on board our keypad-driven printers to do serialized labels. So you can define, if you want to follow the ANSI standard for cabling identification, you can do that with our serialization.
Excellent. Yeah, the I always say, I teach classes all the time, and one of the things I say to almost every single class is the administration standard is the most ignored standard that we just don't
Hmm.
follow it we don't follow it in the industry, which is unfortunate because if you follow the labeling standard, it's going to make your job easier as a technician, as makes the company's job easier because everybody's labeling the exact same way. And it's going to
Yeah.
save the customer money because you can get them back up and running quicker because you know the labeling sequence. So there's a lot of advantages to following the standards, but like you hit the nail on the head it is one of the most ignored standards we have, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we have a lot of different label material options for those cabling professionals that want to do the labeling,
Mhm.
whether they are wraparound, flexible nylon labels, whether they are self-laminating, where you print on a white printable area, and then you have a clear over laminate that wraps over it, protects that. Um, 12 different material options really on the M211 and M511, and then we have over 60 label material options for the M611.
Right.
So just again, we have a whole team of chemists that are much more intelligent about label chemistry than I am. That really pump out some quality labels.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, we have a lot of different services we're gluing to, and not all the services are flat. Cables are round. And I could see a potential problem down the road if somebody is using a label that's designed for cabling on a patch panel because it's going to want to naturally try to want to coil and ends up falling. Because I always
Hmm.
joke because half the labels fall off anyway. So yeah, make sure you use good quality labels so that way they don't fall off. Yeah. So what's new coming down the pike for Brady? Anything? What are you guys working on?
Well, you're talking about labels falling off, so I'll hit on a very recently launched product of ours. You see more and more uh, uh, traditional cables that have surfaces that are either lubricated for cable pulls or they're really slick surfaces for the same reason, for when you're pulling those wires through small spaces. So we came out with a aggressive adhesive version of our popular self-laminating label. It really, again, already a solid product with our self-laminating wrap, but now it's an even stronger adhesive version of that. Another innovative product we came out with, we partnered with Velcro, and Velcro has what they call as their one wrap. And so now we have a label. It's our Brady Grip print on hook material. So you can
Mhm.
literally print on this label that then applies to Velcro. So think of a bundle
Oh,
of cables
cool.
that you have
That's
and you want to
cool.
identify. Yes, it's really neat. We're the only the only company in the market that offers that solution right now. Really neat concept.
Well, Dustin, I appreciate you coming on today and talking about the generational shift and efficiencies and how you guys are helping to address that for our industry. I appreciate your time and thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate having me. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Well, that was a great show. I certainly hope you got much of it as I did. There's a lot of great things that we talked about today and how to become more efficient. Now, let's get to the thing that you're probably here at the end of this episode for. How can I win that label machine? All you got to do is click on this QR code right here and sign up for our newsletter. Right. And that newsletter, 1 week from the published date of this episode, I will announce a winner on my live stream. So the live stream following the publishing of this video, you'll find out who actually won that labeling machine. So until next time, remember, knowledge is power.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.